The city was still waking up when Ramon gently pulled the front door closed behind him. The hallway smelled of fresh bleach and burnt toast. He glanced back once at the small apartment he shared with his wife, Louisa. Quiet, dim, and full of memories. Today wasn't just another workday. Today was the day he was finally going to withdraw every dollar he had saved over the past 7 years. For Louisa's surgery. A surgery they couldn't delay anymore. The brown envelope in his hand felt heavier than it should have. Not because of the cash inside, but because of what it had cost him. Missed meals, canceled dreams, nights spent driving strangers while his wife struggled through pain alone. But he never complained. He was a silent fighter. That's who Ramon was. Dressed in a clean white shirt and pressed black pants, he looked like a man on a mission rooted in love. He walked down the cracked sidewalk with quiet urgency and got into the same black sedan he drove every day. Not his, but his responsibility. For nearly 10 years, Ramon had been the personal driver of Keanu Reeves. Yes, that Keanu. But in all these years, Ramon had never once asked for a favor. Not even when Louisa was first diagnosed. He believed in earning his life, not borrowing it. Before picking up Keanu for the day's appointments, Ramon made a quick stop. The bank at the corner of Maple and Sunset. It wasn't fancy, but it was the only one that allowed cash withdrawals over $10,000 without a prior appointment. He walked in quietly, took a number, and waited. The air was cold. The chairs were too close together. On the walls, glossy posters promised financial freedom, but all Ramon could think about was Louisa's tired smile. Her fingers had started trembling again last night. He needed to get this money. Today. His number blinked on the screen. He approached the counter and politely handed the envelope to the teller. A young man with pale skin, slick blonde hair, and a smirk that didn't quite belong in customer service. His name tag read, Mark. Mark looked at the envelope like it was infected. "This is yours?" he asked, barely hiding the doubt in his voice. Ramon nodded. "It's for my wife's surgery. I've been saving it for years." Mark said nothing, just started typing slowly, eyes flicking between Ramon and the screen. Then came the first whisper. "Strange. A driver with this kind of money?" Mark didn't even realize he'd said it loud enough to be heard. But Ramon heard it, loud and sharp, like a slap without hands. "I'm sorry?" Ramon asked, his voice calm, but his cheeks flushed. Mark leaned forward slightly, arms folded. "We have to question large transactions from unknown sources. Do you have proof of income?" Ramon held up his ID, but his hands had started shaking. "It's cash. I've been saving for years. I don't have receipts for every penny." "That's a problem," Mark said coldly. "Without documentation, we can't release this amount." People behind him started murmuring. A woman clutched her purse tighter. 2 teenage boys near the door tried not to laugh. Ramon could feel it all. The eyes, the judgment, the invisible wall being built around him. "I work for someone very well known," Ramon said softly, not out of pride, but desperation. "I'm a driver. We've heard it all before," Mark interrupted. "If you can't prove the source, you'll have to come back." Ramon stood still for a moment, then slowly took his envelope back. His dignity stayed on the counter, in pieces. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He just nodded and walked out, shoulders heavy, heart heavier. Outside, he leaned against the car, not ready to sit inside. The sun was up now, but the warmth didn't reach him. His eyes burned, his throat tightened. But there was no time to cry. He had to pick up Mr. Reeves. He started the car and checked his mirror like he always did. But this time, his reflection stared back with something different. A quiet hurt that couldn't be hidden. At 9:05 a.m., the building door opened, and Keanu Reeves stepped out, smiling like always. He greeted Ramon with a kind, "Good morning," and sat in the back seat. Ramon replied, but his voice didn't carry the same calm it usually did. Keanu noticed. He always did. And as they drove through the early Los Angeles traffic, Keanu's eyes stayed fixed on the rearview mirror, watching, wondering. Something had happened, and whatever it was about to change everything. Want to know how this story ends? Stick with us until the final moment. And before we dive in, tell us in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We read every message and love hearing from you. Keanu stayed silent for the first few blocks, letting the city's noise fill the space. But the energy in the car felt off. Ramon wasn't humming like he sometimes did. He wasn't nodding to the traffic rhythm. He just stared straight ahead, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly. Keanu noticed the redness in his eyes and the small crease between his brows. This wasn't just a headache. "You all right, Ramon?" Keanu finally asked, voice soft. "Yes, sir," Ramon replied quickly, almost rehearsed. "Just tired. Long morning." Keanu leaned forward slightly. "We've worked together almost 10 years, right?" Ramon gave a small nod. "Yes, sir." "And in those 10 years," Keanu continued, "you've never once brought your problems into this car." Ramon didn't answer. His silence said more than words could. The light turned red, and they paused at the intersection. Keanu took off his sunglasses and studied Ramon's reflection. "Tell me what happened." Ramon hesitated, then exhaled. "I went to the bank," he began, "to withdraw the money I've been saving. For Louisa's surgery. Everything I had." Keanu leaned in slightly, listening. The teller looked at me like I didn't belong. He questioned everything. My job, the money, me. Keanu's expression tightened. Did he say something? He didn't have to. It was in his face, in his tone. Ramon swallowed hard. He called it suspicious. Said a driver like me shouldn't have that kind of money, unless I could prove it. The car felt heavier, like it had sunk into the asphalt. Keanu stared out the window for a long moment, then turned back. "Did you get the money?" Ramon shook his head. Number I walked out. A long pause followed. Keanu leaned back in his seat, the gears in his mind clearly turning. "What was his name?" "Mark," Ramon said quietly. Keanu repeated it once under his breath, as if etching it into stone. "Mark." The rest of the ride passed in silence. But the silence wasn't empty. It was loaded with something. A shift, a decision quietly forming. By the next morning, something had changed. Ramon waited outside Keanu's apartment building, the car spotless, as always. But today, he felt unsure. Would Keanu bring it up? Had he forgotten? At 8:47 a.m., Keanu stepped out, coffee in one hand, dressed in a simple black hoodie and jeans. He opened the door, slid into the back seat, and before Ramon could ask, he spoke. "We're making a stop before the meeting." Ramon glanced at him through the mirror. "Where to, sir?" Keanu's eyes didn't move. "The bank." Ramon's hands froze on the wheel. "The same one?" "Yes," Keanu said simply. They drove in silence until Keanu leaned forward slightly, his voice quieter this time. "You know, when I was a kid, I watched my mom work 3 jobs to keep food on the table. I used to sit on the kitchen floor counting coins so we could pay rent." Ramon didn't know what to say. Keanu continued. "People looked at us like we were trash, just because of how we looked, like we didn't belong." His voice cracked slightly, just enough to make Ramon glance back. "You never asked for anything, Ramon. Not even when you deserved it. But yesterday?" Keanu paused. "You were robbed of your dignity. And I don't let that happen to my people." When they pulled up outside the same bank, everything looked normal. Customers walked in and out. The security guard barely looked up. But something was about to happen. Keanu stepped out of the car, calm as ever. But behind those dark sunglasses was a man with a mission. And inside, the man who had humiliated Ramon was about to face something he never expected. The moment Keanu Reeves walked through the bank's glass doors, the atmosphere shifted. At first, no one noticed. Just another customer entering on a quiet weekday morning. But as soon as a woman near the front recognized his face, everything slowed. Phones began to rise. A whisper rippled through the lobby. People froze mid-step. Keanu didn't flinch. He walked calmly toward the front desk. "Good morning," he said with a slight nod. "I'd like to be assisted by Mark." The receptionist blinked, caught between nerves and disbelief. Sure. Just a moment." Keanu waited, his posture composed but intentional. When Mark appeared moments later, holding a clipboard and half a smile, he was visibly unaware of who had asked for him. But the second he locked eyes with Keanu, his steps faltered. "Mr. Reeves," he stammered. "What an honor." Keanu returned a polite smile. "I'm here to make a deposit," he said smoothly. "And ask a question." Mark straightened. "Of course. How can I help?" Keanu leaned slightly forward. Not threatening, not loud, but his tone was steel, wrapped in silk. "Would you have treated a man in a suit the same way you treated the one who came in yesterday with that envelope?" The lobby quieted. The question hung in the air like a held breath. Mark blinked rapidly, searching for a response that wouldn't sound like a lie. I follow procedure." "This isn't about procedures," Keanu cut in. "This is about how you made someone feel invisible, unworthy, and suspicious. Based only on how he looked." Mark swallowed hard. His hands gripped the edge of the counter, like he needed something to hold on to. From the back of the lobby, a phone camera light blinked on. Then another. Eyes turned. Conversations died. Keanu didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every word landed like a silent verdict. "That man has driven me across this city for almost a decade," he said. "He's never asked for anything. He's shown up every day with quiet respect, no matter how hard his own life was." Mark's face flushed as the manager appeared from the side, nervously adjusting his tie. "Mr. Reeves," he said, trying to sound composed. "Let's take this to my office." Keanu held up a hand. "Number I asked for Mark, and I'll finish what I started with Mark." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "This is the deposit I came to make. But that's not the point." He gently placed it on the counter. "The real value here," Keanu continued, "isn't in money. It's in the dignity that was taken from a man who deserved better." He turned slowly toward the entrance, where Ramon now stood, just outside, watching through the glass. Keanu raised his voice just enough for everyone to hear. "He's not just my driver. He's my friend." "And what happened here? That ends today." Mark couldn't speak. His shoulders had slumped, the fake confidence drained from his face. And while everyone stared at Keanu, phones in hand, Ramon stood in stunned silence, heart pounding. But he wasn't invisible anymore. Later that evening, long after the bank's crowd had thinned and the videos had started circulating online, there was a knock at Ramon's apartment door. It was soft, hesitant, the kind of knock from someone unsure if they'd be welcomed. Ramon opened the door cautiously. Standing there, holding a plain white envelope in both hands, was Mark. Ramon didn't say anything at first. His arms crossed slowly, not out of anger, just caution. Behind him, Louisa was resting, and the soft clatter of a cooking show echoed from the kitchen. Mark's eyes were down. "I came to say what I couldn't say earlier," he murmured. "Or maybe what I didn't know how to say." He extended the envelope, but Ramon didn't take it right away. "What is it?" he asked. "My apology," Mark said. "Not typed, not emailed, just words, real ones." After a pause, Ramon reached out and took the envelope. Inside was a letter, handwritten with careful strokes. "Ramon, I judged you before I knew you. I saw a driver, not a man. Not someone saving his every dollar for the woman he loves. My father was a driver too. I was ashamed of that growing up. And today, I became the very kind of person I resented. I didn't see you. Not because you were invisible, but because I never learned how to look deeper. I'm sorry. For what I did, and for the kind of man I became." Ramon stopped reading. His hands trembled slightly. "I saw that video online," Mark added. "I didn't feel attacked. I felt exposed." There was silence between them. A long one. "You think an apology erases what happened?" Ramon asked quietly. "No," Mark answered honestly. "But maybe it's the start of something better." For a long second, Ramon said nothing. Then, slowly, he stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come in." They sat at the small kitchen table. No cameras, no spotlight. Just two men, one truth. Ramon spoke, really spoke, for the first time in years. He talked about his childhood in a small Mexican town, about crossing borders not for dreams of riches, but for survival, about meeting Luisa, about the nights he slept in the car so she could have the bed when her pain was too much, about learning English by listening to cab passengers talk, about what it meant to be unseen every day, until someone like Keanu finally saw him. Mark listened without interrupting. Something shifted in him. A wall that had always been there cracked. "I judged you because I never made peace with who my father was," Mark said softly. "Because I never believed men like him, like you, could be heroes in their own lives." Ramon looked at him, really looked, and then nodded. "Do better," he said. "That's all I ask." The next week, the bank issued a public statement. Not about procedures, but about change. They announced a new program, Empathy in Practice, designed to train employees to see beyond appearances. The first story used in that training? Ramon's. He didn't ask for it. But when they called, he said only, "If it helps one more person not feel invisible, use it." Months passed. Luisa recovered, slowly but steadily. Their daughter graduated from nursing school. And on that proud day, when she stepped onto the stage, she looked out into the crowd. Her parents smiled in the front row. And just behind them, in the last seat by the wall, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, sat Keanu. He didn't stay for applause. He slipped out before the clapping even stopped. Outside, under a quiet tree, Ramon found him waiting. They embraced. A brief, silent moment. Before walking away, Keanu leaned in and whispered, "Sometimes, silent kindness does more than any scene I'll ever shoot." And then, he was gone. Weeks later, Ramon found another letter, slid quietly under his door. No stamp, no return address. It was from Mark. "I've started therapy, not to erase what I did, but to understand it. I saw myself in my father, and I saw him in you. That scared me. But you didn't just forgive me. You changed how I see people. And maybe even how I see myself." "Thank you." Ramon folded the letter and placed it in the drawer with Luisa's old love notes, his daughter's childhood drawings, and one wrinkled photo of his first day driving for Keanu. And on a quiet Sunday, as he sat beside his daughter near the hospital where she now worked, she asked, "Do you ever wish it hadn't happened?" Ramon thought for a long moment. "No," he said softly. "Because sometimes it takes being broken in public to show the world what was whole inside you all along." She smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. Across the street, a familiar figure walked by. Hoodie up, hands in pockets, Keanu didn't stop, just raised his chin in silent greeting. And for once, Ramon didn't wave. He just smiled. Because this time, he didn't feel invisible. He felt seen.